Denver's decisions lead Colorado in directions that people love and hate. So changing how Denver decides important issues, that matters outside the city. There's a new criminal investigation into how the voting system was compromised in a county where the clerk also happens to be an election-rigging conspiracy theorist. A bunch of popular restaurants never want you to go there.
Ghost kitchen is basically a kitchen that isn't visible to somebody from the outside.
They boomed during the pandemic and are likely here to stay. And an honor for a Coloradan with a successful acting career. Except her hometown has no idea who named this green space after her. Life is full of mysteries. That's why there's next. What is decided by Denver City Council ripples well beyond the city. It's why you hear so many people outside Denver either trying to emulate what Denver is doing or complaining that Denver is ruining the state. So a change in how Denver decides stuff? Well, that really matters. Politics guy Marshall Zellinger takes us inside a debate over whether at-large city council members are the best way to run a growing city.
The city of Denver's population of 500,000 registered voters is divided 11 times. Each of these are different council districts. The residents in these 11 areas vote for their councilperson. There are 2 additional council members voted on by the entire city. Those seats are at large. Council members Candy Sitabaca, Kevin Flynn, and Jolon Clark want voters to decide if the city should go to 13 distinctly drawn districts or stay with 11 districts and 2 at-large seats.
Single-member district elections increase descriptive representation of underrepresented racial and ethnic groups on city councils.
Tuesday's committee hearing was the first step to get the issue on the ballot for Denver voters to decide in November. In 2023, Denver's districts will be redrawn because of redistricting. During that election, both at-large council members, Debbie Ortega and Robin Kinich, will be term limited, so their seats will be open and could perhaps be more easily drawn into a 12th and 13th district.
We value having tighter, smaller districts that can be more representative of more discrete communities of interest? Or do we value that check and balance that at-large can sometimes bring?
Sitabaca argued when the entire city picks 2 council members, it can dilute minority votes. In 50 years, there have been 15 at-large council members.
And only 2 of 15 have ever been people of color.
We have 5 council districts that have never had a person of color elected in them.
Kinich defended her term-limited job as an at-large councilperson as a role that does not ignore minority concerns.
Leading fights against jails, championing human services. The statement was made that at-large members choose the interests of those who are powerful against those who are struggling. And I just don't think that, that the record's going to have to speak for itself there.
4 of Aurora's 10 council seats are at large. Colorado Springs has at large. Cities that do not apparently are cities Denver often compares itself to: Austin, Baltimore, Chicago, LA, Madison, Minneapolis, New York, and San Francisco.
And there's the awkward sauce in all this, that of course the people that they're looking to get rid of their positions are in the room. Would be like if you said, this show would be better if we had a couple more reporters and maybe one less anchor.
It's, I just said, it was like awake, but the person was still alive. But they are term limited, so it's not like they're getting pushed out of that seat by this decision. And Kevin Flynn says this is the only time you can do it, when you're term limited and redistricting until 2080, when you're not kicking someone out of a seat when you do it in the middle of the 10 years.
It would bring different voices to council, that's for sure. Marshall, thank you. The federal government's going to cut a quick check for $11 million taxpayer dollars to reimburse Colorado for the cleanup of I-70 in Glenwood Canyon. The next step to getting the interstate open is installing these ginormous sandbags right along the highway. Super sacks is what they're called. 60 of those huge suckers are getting filled with sand and then lined up along the north side of the highway to hopefully stop the next mudslide. There will be a next mudslide. CDOT says it hauled away hundreds of tons of mud, rocks, and trees from the last mudslide. A break yesterday in the rain was helpful. So now CDOT engineers assess the damage done to the roadway itself. Once the road is clear, CDOT has to make sure that it's structurally sound. And CDOT said today that it expects one westbound lane to be ready to go once it's cleared and the barriers are installed. No firm estimate on that other than that it should be days, not weeks. Then the goal will be one open eastbound lane. There is now a criminal investigation into how Mesa County's voting system passwords ended up in the hands of right-wing conspiracy theorists. The Republican county clerk, who has supported election rigging conspiracy theories, said she's not talking about this on the advice of the district attorney. Seemed odd, so I called him. The DA told me today he has not talked to Clerk Tina Peters about this, doesn't know where she's getting this. Today, the Colorado Secretary of State's office said it had begun a physical examination of the voting systems in Mesa County. Clerk Tina Peters is cast doubt on election security, and recently, Mesa County's election passwords for its Dominion voting system ended up online, posted by a QAnon conspiracy theorist who failed to redact the information that traced the info right back to Mesa County. Today, District Attorney Dan Rubenstein told me he never advised Clerk Peters or anyone else in her office on this, and he said that he's opened a criminal investigation into whether the voting system's breach constitutes a state crime. Secretary of State's office said since this breach happened recently, it did not impact elections, but Mesa County might have to build its voting systems back up from scratch to prove that they're secure. It is early, though it looks like Colorado might be hitting the peak of our latest COVID-19 wave. Case numbers have stabilized over the last 5 days. That's very encouraging. Been hovering around 900 cases per day with no significant growth. Now, cases are just one metric. Hospitalizations is what we focus on, the most serious cases. And we've always known hospitalizations lag behind cases. And our hospitalizations are still headed up. They've gone from 291 people hospitalized to 494 in 2 weeks. If the case counts have peaked, our hope is that we will see that reflected soon in the hospitalizations. We've answered countless COVID questions on Next. One that you sent us last week is new. What happens in families that have separated parents who can't agree on whether their kids should get the COVID vaccine? We talked to Ellen Squire. She's a family law attorney who said this very issue has been decided in courtrooms. And it makes sense because parents debating on whether to vaccinate their kids, that's not new. It's just the COVID vaccine that's new. Squires talked to us about how families are hopefully working through that question outside court.
You're going to shut a person down completely if you come from a place of bullying or, I can't believe that you're so ill-informed, or I thought you were smarter than this. Seeing if maybe there's another information source that the two parents can agree on and confer with that person.
Squire says she's encouraging families to talk logistics now. What happens if somebody in the family gets sick with COVID? What precautions will the family take ahead of time or after that happens? And she said, most of the time divorced parents are able to make major health decisions for their kids together. But if one person has sole authority, the other parent can always ask to talk it out through mediation or file a motion with the court. And she said she's seen judges get involved to try and keep kids safe within the parameters of the parenting plan. Hey, a warning for Coloradans on unemployment. Pandemic-era benefits like the PUA and PUC are going away on September 4th. Only regular unemployment benefits will remain. We introduced you to a Coloradan named Erin Joyce Swank on Next last year. She's helping others navigate the unemployment benefits process. And nowadays she's working to remind people that those pandemic benefits will soon come to an end.
There is a big debate about whether we will get more extensions. There are some people still fighting for it, but when 26 governors have already said they don't want it for their state, it's going to be a really hard sell. So we're telling people to not plan on it. It could happen, but I certainly would not plan it. And at this point, I wouldn't plan on it not having a gap in benefits.
So pandemic-related benefits will remain in people's accounts until September 6th. And then backdated claims will be allowed through October 6th. Nothing about a ghost kitchen is spooky.
A ghost kitchen is a kitchen that operates like you think of as a restaurant, but there's no front of the house.
It's how some restaurants in Colorado managed to stay afloat during the pandemic. And a green space is named for a famous Coloradan. Except the city of Longmont says it didn't do it and wants the name gone. Next. I thought that was the opening bars of Desperado. We're not allowed to play popular music on this show. If you have ever scrolled through your options for food delivery on your phone, chances are you've seen some restaurants that look real slick. You don't recognize them, though. Ghost kitchens. They exploded in popularity during the pandemic. They're restaurant kitchens without the rest of the restaurant. No place to sit down and eat or do takeout. They exist only for delivery. Leaders in Colorado's restaurant industry can't tell us how many of these ghost kitchens exist in our state. The researcher and restaurant owner told our Steve Steger, ghost kitchens are likely to outlast the pandemic that gave them a boost.
Hello, how are ya?
One of the cheesiest lines in television news has to be when a reporter says, he wishes you had smell-o-vision.
This is a lobster ravioli with our sage brown butter sauce.
So instead I'll say, you should try this. But you can't order it off of the menu inside Simmer in Fort Collins.
It's a delivery and takeout concept. So out of the same kitchen, but yeah, just not in-house.
So we had to find a way to increase sales during the COVID period when we didn't have a full dining room.
Steve Lauer owns Simmer, and he also owns Rocco's Ravioli, something he cooked up during the pandemic. A restaurant only available for carry-out and delivery, operating out of Simmer's kitchen.
It was a huge impact for us when we were down 60, 70, 80% with the nicer environment in the worst times of COVID.
Rocco's is a ghost kitchen.
A ghost kitchen is a kitchen that operates like you think of as a restaurant, but there's no front of the house.
Jeff Miller is an associate professor of hospitality at CSU.
Mostly I'm a teacher. Do some research. Just wrote a book on avocados.
That sounds fascinating.
Google my name and avocado, and you'll see it.
Will do, but back to ghost kitchens. Miller has researched the concept, which predates COVID, but
the pandemic, in a sense, was a perfect storm for this concept. There are people here that are running 3 different restaurant concepts out of one kitchen, and you wouldn't know from the website that it's all coming out of Kitchen A.
The Colorado Restaurant Association doesn't track how many ghost kitchens are in Colorado. Some estimates say there are as many as 1,500 in the United States. A creature of COVID, Miller says ghost kitchens likely won't go away when the pandemic does.
I think people really saw the benefit of this as customers. I can get really good high quality restaurant food, I can get it delivered to my house, or I can pick it up.
Hi, here's that for ya.
Back at Simmer, Lauer says the income from his ravioli ghost kitchen pays the rent for the building. In fact, he's getting ready to expand Rocco's a bit and improve the operation.
It's done wonders for this restaurant. It's almost like this restaurant can't afford to lose the ghost kitchen.
So for existing restaurants, this is pretty cheap to get going. You don't have to spend a ton on marketing, and you don't have to pay the other costs associated with a restaurant, like operating a dining room. Lauer told me even with his dining room busy again, Rocco's does not tax the restaurant. And if people get sick of ravioli, he can always rebrand to a different takeout concept. It's something, maybe he gets sick of ravioli. He could start making, I don't know, Reubens or something and sell those on the side.
We got talking about this weeks ago, and we were both really curious just how many of these there are. Tough to answer.
It really is. So we reached out first to the city of Denver and asked, do you license these? Well, they license restaurants that don't have a kitchen necessarily, or don't have a dining room necessarily.
Yeah.
They don't keep specific numbers on these restaurants that solely exist for carryout.
Yep.
So it's really hard to pinpoint how many of these there actually are, because oftentimes they operate in a kitchen for a different restaurant that already has a license.
Yeah, they've got their license. They can have as many ghosts as they want in the back.
Yeah.
Making ravioli. That was my takeaway from the story. It's ghosts making food.
That's what it is, yeah.
And avocados. Thank you, Steve. We've seen the devastation that wildfires cause in our state, yet we also know that wildfires can have a long-term benefit for the land. Had us wondering if mudslides might do the same. And a piece of green space up in Longmont has been named after a famous actress, and the city is curious how that happened. Next.
We know that wildfires, while destructive, can renew our forests. Our next question is whether the mudslides that follow have any similar benefit for the environment. We asked Greg Hansen with the National Weather Service in Boulder.
Yeah, I suppose from a geologic standpoint, there may be a really long-term kind of thing. I can't think of one. The mudslides and debris flows really mess up a lot of the ecosystems. You know, we increase the turbidity in the water, the sediment in there, so it makes it harmful to fish and other aquatic life in the rivers. So, you know, not really any benefit there. I gave a talk to some schools this summer, and one fourth grader asked a really good existential question about the benefit of tornadoes, you know, because lightning will fix nitrogen, the rain is beneficial, but does a tornado benefit anything? So this question kind of reminds me of that, and I really can't think of any benefits for that.
Tornadoes and mudslides, not great in the end. We will take questions from all grade levels and grown-ups, because if you're wondering, somebody else around here is too. Record a video or audio message of yourself asking the question and email it to next@9news.com. And then our team gets about the business of getting you an answer.
Hazy and warm again this afternoon with 95 degrees in downtown Denver, close to 100 in eastern Colorado. Tomorrow will be the warmest day of the week with highs in record territory with more smoke and haze coming in. Higher concentration right over Denver down to Colorado Springs overnight with some improvement to the north during the morning hours. But we'll continue with that smoke and haze. High areas of pollution around the area, the ozone, the wildfire smoke, so that air quality alert remains in effect tonight. Isolated storms early and then a partly sunny day tomorrow, with temperatures very, very warm. 62 tonight. Our high tomorrow, if we hit 97, ties the record for the date. But Friday looks amazing, cooler with a good chance of rain from thunderstorms, and that cooling trend remains into the weekend.
Did you know the city of Longmont named a green space after the actress and Coloradan Kristen Schaal? Neither did the city of Longmont. Shout out to the next viewer, Ben, who first spotted and alerted us to this. If you peruse around on Google Maps, you'll find a small plot of land in southwest Longmont named the Kristen Schaal Green Space. It's a very nice soccer field there. It's part of the Dry Creek Greenway. It's located near Airport Road and Nelson Road. So Schaal grew up in Longmont. She had a very successful acting career, probably best known for some of her voice work, including in the TV show Bob's Burgers. Her honors, however, do not include having her name officially put on a green space in her hometown. City of Longmont says that somebody apparently created a business on Google called Kristen Schaal Green Space and dropped the marker on that plot of land. Only that Google user can change or remove the name. The city did say somebody could go through official channels if they wanted to officially rename the green space. Schaal herself was quite moved. She responded on Twitter saying she adores it and had her family go check out the area a while back. No sign. Hope they weren't disappointed. Horses, goats, beer, recipe for a wild weekend, and the most Colorado thing we saw today. That and your feedback next. The most Colorado thing we saw today is really quite simple. Combines two of our loves, beer and animals. Don't feed beer to animals, that's not cool. This, though, is Jeff was grabbing beer at Odell's in Fort Collins, not far away from a couple of horses that folks rode over, and somebody with a baby goat. Props to whomever is balancing the baby goat in one arm and their drink of choice in the other. Send us the most Colorado thing you saw today. Email your pictures or videos to next@9news.com or give us a shout on Twitter with the hashtag #HeyNext. That is what Peter Bucci did tonight after seeing Steve Sager's story on ghost kitchens proliferating in our state. Peter drives for DoorDash, and he said, you know, ghost kitchens sound like a great idea. And he said, I'm sure customers benefit, but I can tell you they make a delivery driver's life pretty difficult. The restaurants in which the ghost kitchens are located don't always have signage posted to assist the drivers. Oh, could you imagine that mess for a DoorDash driver? Just knocking on doors randomly. Is this the place for, you know, the raviolis? See you next time.